This is tutorial 2, level 3 on autumn leaves. In the first tutorial, I went through some alternative chords, replacing some of the chords 2 with a dominant 7th and putting in an augmented chord, also putting in some extra 2/5s, 2/5/1s. I'm just going to look at the altered scale and the altered chords that I've inserted into Autumn Leaves. The first altered chord that I've put in is at the end of the first A section, and it's chord 1 in the minor key, and by making it an altered chord, a dominant chord, it pulls very nicely to the top of the piece, and the top of the piece has chord 2. So I'm going to show you how that sounds. So here's our cadence, and then we make chord 1, which is a minor 7th chord, into an altered chord, so that when I get to the top, the pull is very strong, because that's a dominant tonic. Now it isn't really tonic, because the use of tonic means that we're in that key, but what it's doing is pulling to the chord 2. It's like a false pull, in that it's making us think that chord 2 is where we're getting to. It's our destination. But actually once we get there, it's actually going to take us somewhere else, because that's chord 2, and the sequence goes on. Another use of the altered chord in the middle section is as an alternative to chord 2. So that's, instead of going, I've got the altered chord. So by replacing chord 2 with an altered chord, I've made it a dominant 7th type chord, and we often call that a secondary dominant. The scale that sounds good with the altered chord is the altered scale. And the altered scale is the 7th mode of the melodic minor. And if you're not sure of that, just go onto my jazz snippets videos and find the one on the altered scale. The altered scale is also known as half diminished, half diminished, half whole tone, and that's because it's half of a diminished scale. So it starts with a semitone, tone, semitone, and then ends with tones. So if you derive your phrases from the altered scale and then resolve them, you can see how it creates a lot of tension. Maybe play around with dominant tonic, but using the altered scale. The altered chord is a chord which is a dominant 7th chord. So if I did it on G, which is what I was just playing on, you've got the dominant 7th, the 9th is flattened and also sharpened, the 11th is sharpened, and the 13th is flattened. So it sounds like this if you played everything, which is all of the notes. But we tend to play the chords in different ways on the piano. So instead of playing everything, it doesn't really help to hear every single note. We play an impression of that. So a dominant 7th with a sharp 9 and a flat 13, and that's how I'd voice it, is often known as an altered chord. Or if you see dominant 7th, sharp 9, or sharp 9, flat 13, you can play lines that use notes from the altered scale. It's also voiced like this. So we have those various altered phrases that can be used at that point. I'm just going to play the minor 2/5/1, and now put in some put the altered chord in and play some phrases now. So instead of going, which would be the regular kind of harmony and chords that you would use, I'm now going to insert altered chords. And so it just adds a little bit more flavour to the music. You can also think of the upper structures of the chords. So the upper structure of a G altered chord is in fact a flat 6 chord. So if we're in G, the flat 6 is an E flat triad. We put that underneath our dominant 7th, and you can play some ideas that use those maybe as an arpeggio. If I use it on the 2-5-1 into the minor key, it sounds. People like Herbie would perhaps use it with doing triplets in 4s, so triplet patterns but using 4 notes. I'll show you what I mean. So using upper structures is also a great way to create ideas over the altered chords, and that's the second lesson on tutorial 2, level 3 on Autumn Leaves.